Welcome back to Coin Nexa Vault. Before we get into today's coins, I need you to understand something. What you're about to see are not ancient relics from some dusty museum. They are coins that were minted within your lifetime. Coins that passed through grocery store registers and laundry machines and birthday cards, and most people had absolutely no idea what they were holding. We're covering 3 Lincoln pennies today that collectors are actively hunting right now. And I need you to stay until the very last one, because the final coin on this list is the kind of find that separates the people who know from the people who wish they'd known. Let's start with the 1992 Lincoln penny. And before you roll your eyes and think it's a penny from 1992, how special could it possibly be? I want you to stop, because the 1992 Lincoln cent is home to one of the most talked about close AM varieties in the entire modern Lincoln series. And if you have one sitting in a jar right now, you could be sitting on something that sells for serious money at auction. Here's exactly what you're checking for. Flip your 1992 penny over to the reverse side and look at the word America in the inscription United States of America. Specifically, look at the gap between the letters A and M. On a standard 1992 penny, those two letters sit close together, nearly touching. But on the rare variety, those same two letters have a noticeably wider space between them, a gap that collectors call the wide AM, and that single detail, that tiny typographical difference that most people would never notice in a lifetime of handling change, is the difference between a 1-cent coin and a coin worth real, documented money. A certified example of the 1992 close AM in higher mint state grades has sold in the range of several $100s, while a genuine wide AM reverse variety, which some attribute to a transitional die mix-up, commands even stronger collector premiums depending on condition and certification. To get this right, you need magnification. A loop or even your phone's camera zoomed in tight will reveal what the naked eye simply cannot confirm. The 1992 Lincoln cent came out of the Philadelphia Mint during a period of enormous production volume, with hundreds of millions of coins being struck to meet circulation demand, which is precisely why die varieties slipped through. Quality control at that scale is never perfect, and the errors that survive are the ones collectors prize most. As with any variety of this nature, what determines real-world value is third-party certification through PCGS or NGC. An authenticated, graded example carries documented provenance that collectors will pay a premium for, while a raw, ungraded coin is worth far less regardless of what the coin itself looks like. Check your 1992 pennies, zoom into that AM gap, and set aside anything that looks wider than normal, because the next coin on our list is from just 1 year earlier, and it has a feature that is somehow even harder to spot and even more rewarding when you find it. Next, 1991 Lincoln penny. And here's the thing about this coin that most casual collectors completely overlook. The 1991 Lincoln cent is one of those dates in the modern series that looks completely unremarkable on the surface and hides its value in the kind of detail that only reveals itself under magnification. The feature to focus on today is the date itself. Specifically, look at the 9 in 1991, the second digit from the left, and examine whether there's any trace of a secondary impression behind or beneath the primary number. On certain 1991 cents struck from dies that were either mishandled or reused beyond their intended lifespan, you can see what numismatists call a double die effect. A faint but visible doubling of one or more digits or letters that appears as a shadow, a ghost image, or a slight thickening on one side of the number. This is not a trick of the light. It is a genuine die error, born from the way the hub transfers its design to the working die, and when that transfer happens slightly off alignment, even by a fraction of a millimeter, every coin struck from that die carries the doubled impression permanently. On the 1991 Lincoln cent, documented double die obverse examples show most visible doubling in the date numerals and occasionally in the word Liberty on the left side of the coin. So after you check the date, move your loop to Liberty and look at whether the letters appear to have a second edge, a slight ridge on one side that shouldn't be there. A certified double die 1991 Lincoln Center in Mississippi 65 red condition, the top color designation for copper-based coins, has sold for several $100s, and the stronger and more visually dramatic the doubling, the higher the premium collectors are willing to pay. The 1991 production year across both Philadelphia and Denver mints was an era of heavy mechanical output, with dies being used for longer runs than was sometimes ideal, which is precisely the environment in which double die varieties emerge. Stress fractures and misalignments accumulate over a die's working life, and the coins struck toward the end of that life are the ones most likely to carry anomalies. If your 1991 penny came from the Denver Mint, you'll see a small D mint mark below the date on the obverse, and Denver examples with confirmed die varieties carry their own separate collector premium from Philadelphia examples. So note which mint your coin came from before you reach out to a grading service. Always get any potential double die variety authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC before assuming a value. The difference between a genuine certified double die and a coin with post-mint damage that mimics doubling is something only professional examination can definitively establish. Stay with me because what's coming up as our final coin is the one I've been building toward. A 1988 Lincoln penny with a story behind it that goes deeper than any variety we've covered today, and a collector demand that absolutely backs that story up. Next, 1988 Lincoln penny. And I'm going to say something up front that might surprise you. The 1988 Lincoln cent is the coin on this list that has the single most specific, most documented, and most consistently sought-after variety, and it is a coin that experienced collectors get genuinely excited about when a clean example surfaces, because finding one in real, certifiable condition is not easy. Here is what you are looking for, and I want you to be precise about this. Turn your 1988 penny to the reverse and go back to the same area we examined on the 1992, the word America, and specifically the gap between the A and the M. The 1988 Lincoln cent has a documented and confirmed wide AM variety. A reverse die that was intended for proof coin production somehow made its way into circulation coin striking, and the result is a coin with a noticeably wider gap between those two letters than you would ever expect to see on a business strike cent from this era. This was not supposed to happen. Proof dies and circulation dies are different, they're finished to different standards, they're used in different press environments, and mixing them is the kind of production anomaly that the mint's own quality control is supposed to catch. When it doesn't get caught, when a proof quality reverse die ends up striking regular pennies that go out into the world and get spent and saved and forgotten in jars for decades, that is when history creates a rarity. The 1988 wide AM Lincoln cent is exactly that. To confirm it on your own coin, hold it under a bright light and use at least a 5x loop, positioning it so you're looking straight down at the reverse. The AM spacing will be clearly visible, and if you're seeing a gap wide enough to fit another letter between them, you may well be looking at the real thing. Certified examples of the 1988 wide AM in MS65 red have realized prices in the range of several hundred to over $1,000 at major numismatic auctions, with top condition examples pushing that ceiling even higher when multiple collectors compete for the same coin. Because supply is genuinely limited, demand is genuinely strong, and that combination does exactly what you'd expect it to do to the price. The 1988 production year was one of the highest volume years in Lincoln cent history, with billions of coins struck across Philadelphia and Denver, which means the chances of a die mix-up slipping through were statistically elevated. But it also means that the specific coins with the variety represent a tiny fraction of an enormous mintage, making them genuinely rare within a sea of common dates. Check the mint mark on your coin. If it has no mint mark, it's Philadelphia. If it shows a D, it's Denver, and note that both varieties of the 1988 wide AM have been documented. So either example is worth pursuing for certification. Run your coin through the AM check, Protect it in a coin flip or hard plastic holder before handling it further, and submit it to PCGS or NGC if the spacing looks right, because a confirmed, graded 1988 wide AM Lincoln cent is not the kind of coin you want to have been handling carelessly once you find out what it's worth. If you've got a coin like any of these sitting at home, drop a comment and let me know. And if you enjoyed this, hit subscribe so you never miss the next one.